I'm going to show you all the Stephen King books that I own. G'day my lovelies and welcome back to my channel. And yes, my name is Kathy. I have very often, been asked to do a library tour, a bookshelf tour. But I have so many books that it would take forever. Plus, some of my shelves are not easily accessible for filming anyway. So instead, what I've decided to do is give you some tours of certain collections I have. For example, I have a classics collection, I have a collection of very old romances, and of course the bulk of my books are fantasy. But today, I'm going to show you all my Stephen King books, which I'm quite proud of. And I have been buying, I think, since the early 80s. I had a look at the first book I bought, which I think was The Stand, the original, not the extended version, and that was printed in 82. So I would have bought it somewhere around there, 82 or 83. But I was a poor student for several years, so of course I didn't buy a lot of books, and the books that I did buy were mainly paperbacks. I didn't start my hardcover collection until I think I started working where I could afford to buy them, because hardcovers have always been extremely expensive in Australia. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. I think it's because most hardcovers are printed overseas, so they have to be shipped here. Most of my Stephen King books are hardcovers, but I'm going to start first with the paperbacks. Not that many, and quite a few of these I've already replaced with hardcovers, but not all. Carrie, I only have this in paperback, very hard to find in hardcover. It's King's first published book actually, really good too, I like it. Plus also a little different to the iconic film. Cujo, which I actually have replaced just recently with a hardcover. This is a hard case crime book. This one is The Colorado Kid, which the show Haven is very, very loosely based on. This is the first Dark Tower book that I read. It is The Gunslinger, but it's the original version, not the overhauled one which is in the hardcovers. I love this series, but I think you guys know this already. The second book, The Drawing of the Three. The third book, Wastelands. I actually like the artwork on these as well. I think after this one, I got all the books in hardcover. Now, I think I might not have read this, but I've had it such a long time, I possibly could have. I bought it, of course, because it has Stephen King and George R.R. Martin, and this is a collection of short stories by each of these authors. The Dead Zone. Oh, impossible to find in hardcover unless you're prepared to pay a fortune. Different Seasons is a collection of short stories or novellas, I think, and this one has Rita and The Shawshank Redemption, which is what the film is based on. I also think it might have The Body, which the film Stand By Me is based on, and I love these two. It's a really good collection. The Eyes of the Dragon. This is actually a fantasy novel. Firestarter. The Green Mile. This is all the serials in one book. But I also have the serials, the individual ones, which I'm going to show you now. This is the first serial, Green Mile 1, Green Mile 2, Green Mile 3, and the last one, Green Mile 4. Gwendy's Button Box. I think he wrote this with Richard Chisma. This is a fairly new book, which I've just replaced with the hardcover. A very tattered version of it, because I've read this so many times. Later is another hard case crime book. I only recently read this. Night Shift is a collection of short stories. I think this is one of his earlier ones. The Talisman. I think this is also kind of fantasy horror, and there is now a sequel to it. I like this book. I'd actually forgotten I had this in paperback, The Shining. Skeleton Crew, also one of his earlier short story collections, which I have recently replaced with a hardcover. The Stand. This is the original version that I read. There is now an extended version, which is my favourite. And the last one is Thinner, which I don't remember very well, so I need to reread it. My Stephen King shelves. I'm firstly just going to give you a pan of all the books I have here, except The Dark Tower, which I have somewhere else. And then I'll go through each one individually. You'll notice I don't have a lot of knickknacks because my puppy Claire is not to be trusted, except for this Tutankhamun, which my aunt gave me when I was a child, so it's sentimental. And this is my Dark Tower collection. It's with my other favorite fantasy series. So my books are alphabetical because that is just me. And I'll start by showing the first book, 11/22/63. This is the Bachman books, which are 4 novellas. Unfortunately, it is a book club edition, so you can see it's shorter. I hate book club editions, but it's got some fantastic stories like The Running Man and The Long Walk. Bag of Bones, Bazaar of Bad Dreams, Billy Summers, Black House, which I think is the sequel to The Talisman, Blaze, this is I think an earlier story of his, Cell, A New Acquisition, Cujo, The Dark Half, Desperation, Dr. Sleep, which I actually liked better than The Shining. And if people don't know, Dr. Sleep is the sequel. Dolores Claiborne, very underrated, I think. Dreamcatcher, not one of my favorites. Dew Marquis, I've only read this once and I need to reread it because I enjoyed it the first time. Elevation, this is more like a novella. Interesting idea. Everything Eventual, I think this is a short story collection. I love this one. This is a new acquisition, The Eye of the Dragon. This is actually fantasy. Fairy Tale, which I have not read yet, but I will at some point. Firestarter, another new acquisition. This is one I don't think I've read, but I am going to read very soon. 4 Past Midnight. Again, this is a replacement of a book club edition. I was really pleased I found this one. From a Buick 8. Full Dark No Stars. This I believe is a short story collection. Gerald's Game. This is also a replacement of a book club edition. The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. Gwendy's Button Box. I actually received this after I had already recorded this video, so I thought I'd include it. I bought this to replace the paperback edition. And I also recently bought this, which is the 3rd book in the series, Gwendy's Final Task, also in hardcover, and I'm currently waiting on the 2nd book to arrive. Hearts in Atlantis. This is connected to The Dark Tower, but it's been a while since I've read it, so I'm going to have to reread it. Holly, King's latest. If It Bleeds, this is a collection of 4 novellas. Insomnia, The Institute, not one of my favorites. Okay, now this one has taken me years to finally get. I paid way too much for it, but I absolutely love this edition of it, and it's one of my favorite books. But look at this amazing cover. I just love this. Worth Every Penny. Joyland, one of the hard case crime books, my favorite, and actually one of my all-time favorite King books. Just After Sunset. This is, I think, a collection of short stories. The only one I haven't read yet. Lacey's Story. Not my favorite, but have a look at the inside of the book. Now tell me that isn't gorgeous. I so wish all books were like this. Misery. I love the film. The book's really good as well. These next three are the Bill Hodges series or trilogy. The first one is Mr. Mercedes. I really like this series. And it introduces Holly Gibney, who is a wonderful character. Finders Keepers is the second book, I think, or the third. I can't remember. And the third book, I think, is End of Watch. This is a new edition. It's a replacement of a book club edition. I finally found it, and I love Needful Things, so I'm very happy with this. Nightmares and Dreamscapes, I think is the name. And I think this is a short story collection as well. One of his more recent ones, The Outsider, I really liked this one. Pet Sematary is a favourite with a lot of people. It's not one of my favourites. The Regulators, which with Desperation is the two books he wrote under Richard Bachman. This is a good one as well. It's also a more recent one, Revival. Rose Madder, not one of my favourites. Sleeping Beauties, which he wrote with his son. I haven't read this one yet. This is a new acquisition, Salem's Lot, because my old one was a book club edition. It cost a bit, but it matches The Stand, which you're going to see in a minute. A book club edition of The Shining, which I need to replace. Skeleton Crew, again a new acquisition. It is a collection of short stories, one of his earlier ones. My favourite, this and The Dark Tower, The Stand. This is a special edition, I think. I really love this one. The Tommyknockers, not one of my favourites. Under the Dome, which I think is really good, though I didn't love the ending. Now this is my Dark Tower collection. I absolutely love this series, as you guys know, and I love the first three covers. I think these are, or the artwork is by Michael Whelan, who's very well known in the fantasy industry. He does some of the best artwork. Unfortunately, the whole set was not brought out. Only, I think, 4 books. For some reason, I thought it was 3. I don't have the 4th, so I'm hunting for it. But this is the first book in the series, The Gunslinger. Book 2, The Drawing of the Three. Look at these art covers, just gorgeous. Number 3, The Wastelands. Again, such beautiful artwork. Wizard and Glass. This is by a different publisher. I think it's Grant. And it doesn't match my others, which is so annoying. I have 3 different publishers' editions in this series, so I'd like to kind of make it 2. But this is a really stunning cover. Book 5, Wolves of the Calla. I think these are the UK editions. Book 6, Song of Susanna. And the final book, The Dark Tower. I really love this cover. This is actually a book that came out subsequently, but sits somewhere in the middle of the series. I can't remember where now. The Wind Through the Keyhole. Again, a beautiful cover. So that is my collection of Stephen King's books. I've only recently found out that I'm missing a couple. One is Blockade Billy, which I've now ordered. For some reason, I thought it was part of his short stories. And the other is Cycle of the Werewolf. I didn't even know that it was a book of his until recently. And of course, there is Christine, which I'm still trying to find in hardcover. But other than that, I think I own most of his books, or most of his fiction books anyway, though the hunt continues for certain editions to replace my book club editions or some of my paperbacks. Unfortunately, some of the older paperbacks are really hard to replace, or they cost a fortune, especially for those of us in Australia. Whenever I do find these books in hardcover, they're usually in the States or the UK, and the postage is just more than the book, so it's really not worthwhile. Sometimes I envy those who live in the States because you can just find King's books anywhere. Certainly not the case here, but the hunt will continue. I actually like the hunt. I like trying to find certain books. It's just there is a limit of how much I will spend even on a King book, particularly ones that may not be my favourites. I'm not willing to spend a lot of money on those because I know they're not a favourite book. A favourite? That's a different story. Like the fourth book in the Dark Tower series, Wizards and Glass. I so want this Viking edition which has the Michael Whelan artwork, but they're going for $200 or $300. I'm not quite willing to spend that much, no. Perhaps I'll win the lotto and then I can go and buy every book that I want, but until then, I have to restrain myself. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tour of my King books. Now, of course, I want to know if you collect Stephen King's books. Are you on the hunt for any like I am? Though sometimes I do get frustrated at how expensive they can be. Which is strange. His books were never considered collectibles, but they are now, which of course adds to the cost of them. Anyway, you can let me know down in the comments or you can contact me on Instagram. You can look forward to a few more bookshelf tours in the future, though I have no idea when I'm going to get them done. Thank you all very much for watching. I appreciate all of you. If you like this video, then you can do the usual. You can like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already, as it helps my channel to grow. I hope you all have a beautiful day and I'll see you next time. Bye.